Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. Today is Wednesday and it's Q&A day. So I'm going to answer all of your questions that you asked me last week, and some that were throughout the week where people either sent me messages on Instagram. I get like some questions on Instagram, and I also get some questions in my email. Now, if you want to connect with me on Instagram, it's just Comic Collector Geek, all with underscores in between. And if you want to get in touch with me through email, it's comiccollectorgeek@gmail. It's all one word for my Gmail. So basically, I will accept your questions, and I'll give your channel a shout out if I read your question on here. I try to basically read everybody's questions. I don't get that many questions. It's not like this is that big of a channel, but I hope that my little bit of a shout out does help other people's channels grow. So with all that being said, let's get into the questions. So first is from Richard Lashira, and he said, I heard that November, December is a good time to make offers as demand dips due to the holidays. What's your monthly allowance for comic collecting? Does your wife know how much you spend? You can take the fifth, by the way, only work in US, but that may only work in the US. So I almost want to take the fifth on this, but I will answer the question. So during the holidays, my shopping for comics does slow down. So I do try to, reduce my spending just because I have to buy Christmas gifts and other things. And also every Christmas I travel. I go to Florida usually to visit my parents. They have a home in Florida, and I basically go to Disney World and do all that kind of stuff. So it's generally pretty expensive to do all that. And, I don't have as much money to be spending on comics. So ends up that and also I'm not watching the auctions as much when I'm there. So I can actually save a little bit of money too. So a little bit of both on that. But my usual spending on comics is what happened was I mentioned this many times. I sold my big house and got this house, no mortgage. And I basically used the mortgage money to fund my comic collecting. My mortgage was about $10,000 a month. So basically I had a huge mortgage, and now I don't have that mortgage, and I use that money for my comics. So that's been kind of what I've been doing. My wife wouldn't be too happy if she heard that answer, but that's what I've been doing. Not the greatest way of of spending your money. Maybe she wouldn't be super happy with that. Okay, so the next question is from Rocket Fighter 8. You have a vast collection of comic books, slabbed and unslabbed. But how often do you get to look at, enjoy the ones you don't have displayed? Wouldn't it be better to limit your collection to a fewer but higher grade grails and keys? Yes and no. Okay, so I'm kind of weird. When it comes to collecting comics, I really do enjoy having all of the comics that I really want. And I actually have a very broad taste in comics. So I love the superhero comics. I love the Golden Age comics. I love the Silver Age comics. I love cartoon comics. I love, some of the bondage or good girl art comics. I like a pretty broad range of comics. I like the horror comics. So I kind of want to get all of those things in my collection. I'm actually pretty close to having most of my mega grails in my collection. So maybe once I get to that point where I feel like, oh, I got all the major ones that I wanted to get, then maybe I'd go through the process of upgrading those comics. But still, I'm enjoying buying more and more and expanding my collection. And what I do actually is I organize my collection very often now. Now that I have the comic room really does help in terms of allowing me to enjoy all of my books. So in the past, when I had comics, I would stuff them into my closet and they would just get dust. They would just be, no, they wouldn't get dust, but they would be sitting there and they wouldn't get looked at, and I wouldn't really enjoy them as much as I had wanted to enjoy them. So here, at least I can take them out. I have like a little counter room behind me where I can kind of look at the comics and kind of, get excited about them again and kind of enjoy them. So, and having them on the wall, and the way I did my display, I have it so that they're easy to remove. I can switch them out all the time. Every so often I'll change the display behind me, not that often, but because it is annoying to do. Actually, I'm always paranoid, but I will switch it out if I get bored. So I love looking at them, and for the most part, I do get to see most of the Mega Grails. And then I have all my long boxes, which what I do is actually interesting with my long boxes. So normally when people organize their comics, they don't do it the way I do it. The way I do it is I'll put runs together. So for example, I have a box right in front of me, and it's Lumberjanes, Invincible, and Archie. Those three things have nothing in common with each other, but it just worked out that those three things fit well into one box. However, sometimes I add to those things and then I got to rearrange the comics. Well, that means that generally I go through the comics and kind of figure out where I should put them, and and I kind of rearrange things. And it gets me to revisit a lot of those comics that I hadn't maybe seen for a while. So I do weird things like that just kind of let me to re-examine my comics all the time. And it's a weird way of doing it, but it's one that works for me. I just enjoy kind of reorganizing my comics and kind of looking through the covers, and maybe sometimes I actually even read some of them. I don't read my actual comics that often, but sometimes I do. I actually don't mind sometimes opening them up. If they're a lower grade, I'm less worried about it. If they're a high grade, I get a little nervous. But that's generally the way I collect. I want to get all the issues in that I'm seeking, all the characters that I love. I like to get their first appearances. And it's really the way I collect. I enjoy so many things that I want to get them all in my collection. So I know there are collectors that have this rule of 100 or something like that, or 300, and that's all they collect. Once they get to that 100, and if they want to add a new book, they sell one of the other that are in their collection. But that's just not my style. I'm a hoarder, so that's just me. But you can collect whatever way you want, whatever way you like. I'm not gonna criticize other people's collecting habits. Okay, a new commenter. This is a new person that commented. No grade to low grade. I actually like this name of the channel here. A no grade to low grade. Question is, are you interested in European comic artists? I'm Italian. Among the Italian artists, I think Sodelli and Baldassini will be of your interest. Have you ever read any of their comics? So just so you know, I haven't read any of their comics, but before answering this question, I actually looked up both of those artists. Sudali, his artwork is a lot of bondage art, and they both are actually. I actually liked Sudali's stuff a bit. I thought it was a bit better than Baldassini. Oh, my Italian's horrible. But I thought both were really good. They're more on the adult side of what I collect. I do collect some adult comics, but generally I prefer more PG. So I do collect some adult. Admit I have like some that would not be appropriate for kids. But I do actually prefer more the good girl style and more innocent. So I like bondage art, but generally when it's that kind of innocent girl and she's a little bit in woman in peril kind of style. So I do enjoy those two artists, though. They're both good. In terms of Italian artists, though, in my collection, I do have a bunch. I can't think of their names offhand, But the way I have my Italian collection, and I do have an Italian collection, believe it or not, is through my Warren magazines. So when I collected Warren magazines, once I finished the US collection, I collected all the Warren magazines for the US. I then branched out and started getting collections from the other countries like Sweden and England and France and Japan and Brazil and Portugal and Italy. Strangely enough, I made a friend maybe 20 years ago, 20, almost 30 years ago. It's been that long. That was getting like a friend off of the internet. I didn't ever meet this person, but I was friends with them only for a short term, and I was just buying comics from them, where they were basically sending me all these Italian versions of Warren publishing. So they had the 1984s and all these other ones that would feature a mixture of Italian artists' work plus the Warren original, just reprinting of the Warren publication. So I have a lot of that stuff, and I have about maybe 100 or 200 of these Italian books, and they're quite good. I do enjoy some of the artwork. So that's as far as it got with my Italian collection, but I do respect Italian artists. So the next one is from Sweetel, Mike Sweetel. He's a regular to the channel. So I'm not sure what he's responding to, but he says, plus, when these guys create these characters, do they get a weekly? Oh, he's responding. Okay, now I remember. So this question is based on what I was talking about in my previous video. So if you look at my video from last week, I was talking about how comic artists, when there's a big premiere of some movie or comic writers, I should say, comic creators, when they create some big character, often they don't get any compensation for those movies making literally millions or billions of dollars. And sometimes they get like almost like a little thank you, which is like 5,000 plus a ticket to the red carpet event. And somebody asked, is that really fair? And I basically gave my long-winded answer. You can watch it last week, and about that, where I thought it was kind of fair. But I gave good reason. I'm not totally evil. I gave a good reason for that. So he's commenting on that, what I said, and he's adding to it. He said, plus, when these guys create these characters, they do get a weekly paycheck too. Who do you think is the best comic book artist alive today? Not necessarily your favorite, but if you could rank them, who would be your number one in talent? Okay, so I'm going to cheat on this one. I actually prepared this answer because I kind of wanted to cheat, and you'll understand in a second. So what happened is, like, there's lots of really great modern artists. I actually do like a lot of the modern artists, like the Jenny Frisons, the Campbells, the Art Germs. Those guys are all great. The Pirellis and stuff like that. So they're all really great. Maybe Pirelli's an Italian artist. So there, Italian artist mentioned. So there's a lot of really, really great artists that are modern age. But there are, I sort of have that sweet spot for the golden age. I love the golden age. And it's kind of like maybe I'm a little bit nostalgic to the golden age. I'm not sure why, but I think that there's some like charm to the golden age. So I'm always a little bit going to kind of overly rate the golden age artists over the modern age artists. So what I want to do is pick an artist that is still alive today that's from the golden age. And I think they actually even still produce artwork. And it's just a really brilliant artist that I really do like. I'm not saying that they're the best artists in the world. It's hard to rank what's the best artist. Some think like Peach Momoko is the best artist. I don't think so. But it is very subjective. So it's hard to say one artist is better than the other. But this is an artist that I really love. And I figure it's kind of my cheat because it's a golden age artist that's still alive today. And they're 100 years old. So very old artist. So I thought that was kind of cool. And her name is Lily Renee. And this is an example of her artwork. Very famous cover from Planet Comics. Planet Comics number 39. And it's this kind of like spider cover. It's like she's like a spider lady. She has people trapped in the web and behind her, and the people are in this bubble. Always, for some reason, I like when people are trapped in bubbles. I think it looks cool. So I really like this cover. It's actually my favorite from the Planet Comics series. And this is from Lily Renee. And she's 100 years old. Actually, her story was recently put into a comic book where they talked about her background. She is a Jewish artist. And basically, during the whole rise of Hitler and Nazi Germany, she was basically sent off to live in England. And she was basically raised in England and, avoided the whole war part of, Nazi Germany and what they did to the Jews there. And then she became this great artist that worked on a lot of these Golden Age comics. So this is an example of one that I really like. Another example of her artwork is Abbott and Costello. She did a bunch of covers for Abbott and Costello. And it's this kind of good girl, maybe bad girl art cover. A lot of these Abbott Costello ones, you should really look up. If underrated, really great art on the covers for a lot of the Abbott and Costello. Like I was familiar with Abbott and Costello, but I wasn't really until maybe a year ago familiar with their comics. I always thought of them from the movies, but not from actual comics. And this is just a really great cover. I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see. Just, she's got the whip and it's like, the lion's going to eat, is that Abbott, I guess? I always get mixed up which is the fat one and which is the skinny one. I think it's Abbott is the fat one and the skinny guy is Costello, but I always get confused. So you guys in the comments below, you can correct me which one is which. But yeah, just a really great cover. So that would be my choice for that answer. And again, there's maybe artists that I actually even prefer over her that are still alive and modern artists, but I kind of want to pay a bit of respect to the Golden Age. So that was my cheat. Okay, the next question is from Dan SPL. And Dan writes, can you do a top 5 or top 10 video that you own on Deja Thoris, Vampirella, Witchblade, She, Danger Girl, Gen 13, and Dark Child, etc. So these are like good girl, bad girl, mainly bad girl characters. I actually did do a video on that that you can check out if you go through. Like I always think it's interesting. This question, and I'm going to answer it in a really weird way, but bear with me. One of the things that I've noticed, and it really actually recently kind of went against what my channel was. I noticed that whenever I post a video, that it gets a lot of views if it's a fresh upload. But then over time, it doesn't really get that many views. And so it seems like all my new videos get good views, and then my older videos don't get necessarily the love and appreciation that they deserve. Because a lot of the content that I create, I actually consider evergreen content. It's, it may not be that I'm opening the box that day, but it's still a cool thing to see the unboxing. So I always thought my content would be something that people would continue to view, but it seems like there's just that fresh bonus that I get from traffic, and then it kind of fades over time. So one weird thing that happened was recently I schedule a whole bunch of videos, right? I schedule like maybe 10 videos And when I'm not sure where to put them, what I'll do is I'll just post them out to a future date, and I won't actually, give them the proper date until they're ready to be kind of sorted out. So sometimes that's what you'll see. Like in the background, you'll see different backgrounds based on like, hey, this is a really old video or I just finally got to post it. But what ended up happening once, and it's just like a couple weeks ago, this happened, was that date that I kind of scheduled them off to, like future date, it happened. It actually, like I just caught up to it, and 10 videos went out, all brand new videos, all in the same moment. And what happened was I was like, oh no, I gotta take them down. So I took them down and then rescheduled them to a new date. But the problem was when YouTube uploaded them again, it when it got to those dates, it didn't consider it a new video. So some of them only got like 4 views, and they're like, there's a few videos where like these are mega unboxings and it got like 4 views. It's really sad because it's one of those videos that's got an old post date even though it's a brand new video. So I recommend anyone to check out my past videos, and you will see that I did do a good girl art, a bad girl art thing for some of these characters. And I might do another one, Dan, so that with Vampirella and Witchblade and all these, and my favorite covers from each of those characters, because they do have some really awesome covers, and I actually do like all of those characters, and I have all of those characters' first appearances, so they're all ones that I enjoy. So with all that being said, like, please, I recommend take a look at my past videos. Just click on the video tab and then go through some of the past videos, because there's some really great videos that don't get the love that they deserve, and they're actually better than some of the newer videos that I'm posting. Like, they're really good. I feel sad that they never got the love and attention that they rightly deserved. Another question is from Clinton Rathbun, actually. I think I enjoyed this Q&A most of any so far. The Betty Page comics were beautiful. Okay, so this is really just a comment. I didn't realize that. I thought I trimmed this out, but I guess he just says that he really enjoyed the past one. So see, another recommendation why you should look at my past videos. So basically, he liked the last Q&A, and where I showed some Betty Page and I showed some kind of cool things. So I definitely recommend check out those past videos. The next one is from Comic Mag Musings, and he always likes to joke with me because I'm Canadian. He writes, all right, Canadian Cookie Monster, here's another question for you. You have all the Warren magazines. Do you also collect any Marvel magazines? Strange Tales, Savage Sword of Conan, Howard the Duck, etc. And the answer is yes. So I brought, well, didn't really bring it from anywhere, but I brought like a stack of comics or magazines. These are magazines that I collect, and generally I don't collect magazines for Marvel or DC or the other things other than Warren. I do collect Warren, but these are kind of the exception to the rule. And the reason they're exception to the rule is I do really seek out first appearances of characters that I like. So these are all characters that I really, really like. So we got Savage Tales. So Conan the Barbarian presents Savage Tales. And this is the first appearance of Man-Thing. So just a really cool, iconic character. I'm more of a fan of Swamp Thing than Man-Thing, but I think it's cool to get Man-Thing's first appearance. So this is his first appearance. And it's in a mid-grade. It's like a 5.5. So not too bad. Next is another Savage Tales of Conan the Barbarian. Again, this is another one with a first appearance. I believe this is the first appearance of either Krull or Valeria, I think. And she's sort of a sidekick character. So I think that's her first appearance in this one. And okay, so that's number 2, I believe. So if you're looking for it, it's Savage Tales number 2. And then we got another one, which is another Marvel, which is Vampire Tales number 2. And this is the first appearance of Satana. Satana. Okay, that's, you can see, meet the new Satana, basically, the devil's daughter. And also, what's interesting about this book, other than the great cover, I really like the cover, is that it is, I think, one of the early Morbius stories, like, where he's the main, kind of a character by himself, right? Instead of being like the antagonist against Spider-Man, he's got his own story in this. So kind of a key that maybe is a little bit under the radar for people. And that's Vampire Tales number 2. One that's probably a little bit more well-known is this one, another Satana. So this is where she actually has her own feature. But this is known not for her in this case, but it is known for being the first appearance of Rocket Raccoon, a character that I really like. So I really wanted to get his first appearance in comics, even though it's a magazine format. So that's why I got this one. And another Marvel, Marvel one that I picked up is this Epic magazine. And I believe this is the first appearance of, what's it called? What's the name of the character? I'm forgetting the name of the character. It is a first appearance, though. So this is the first appearance of some character that I should really remember. Like, I want to say Dreadlock or Deadlock or one of those ones, Deathlock. But I'm not sure. But it is a kind of a major first appearance. Okay. Next is I like horror. I do like horror ones. Some of these are not, obviously, these are actually, none of these, I believe, are Marvel, but they are non-Warren related horror. So we got Shock. These are just, I just think these are cool. I just really like these, I guess, Bronze Age and Copper Age horror. So this is like, I think that's from late Silver, early Bronze Age. And then we got weird vampire tales. I just think these are cool. Then we got, this is from 1977. We got Weird. So this is kind of cool with the mummy and a whole bunch of things going on there. Werewolf. And then we got Witch's Tales again from 1971. Really great cover. Okay. I really like this cover. I like, kind of the damsel in distress, as I said before. Okay, so we got Weird Witch's Tales. And this is from 1972. And then Terrors of Dracula. I think it's really interesting that there's a werewolf and the girl's impaled. And we got Witch's Tales again. Another Witch's Tales. And then another Weird. And another Weird. So these are all different ones that, I picked up. I've been trying to get a little bit more into picking up Bronze Age horror magazines. So these are some of the ones that I picked up recently. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. And a lot of the time, when I do collect the magazines, it's only because they feature some major first appearance. And that's why those ones in particular. So yeah, there's another one that I have, which I don't know where I put it, which is the first appearance of Boba Fett. That was also in a magazine. Okay, so next question is from BTC Moon Guy. Have you ever added Bitcoin to your collection? I got started in Bitcoin with a collector's mentality. 21 million hard cap, 7 million people on the planet. So this is kind of interesting because it's not comic related, but I can appreciate it because, I do actually appreciate these kind of new technologies. Strangely enough, I don't have any Bitcoin, but I do have another digital currency, and it's not. It's actually kind of a funny story. So, my background is I do marketing. I do marketing for companies. I help them kind of expand their businesses and kind of promote them. And one of the companies that wanted me to do marketing was a big proponent for Fastcoin. Now, if you're not familiar with Fastcoin, it's just another one of these cryptocurrencies that just happens to have fast transaction times. So with Bitcoin, the transaction time can be like minutes, like about 10 minutes for a transaction. So if you're sending money overseas or something like that, it can take, there's a transaction time. With Fastcoin, it's seconds. So it's just a very quick way of transferring money from one place to another. Okay, and that's really the advantage of Fastcoin. At the time when I was doing the marketing, the Fastcoin I think was worth around 10 cents or something, or maybe 10, 20 cents. It had some value. And so what they agreed to do was pay me in Fastcoin. So I think they gave me 20,000 Fastcoin. So that was like, okay, sure, 20,000 Fastcoin. It's not worth that much money, but it's maybe it'll go up. Maybe it'll be the next Bitcoin, and I'll be like a multi-millionaire. And yeah, I thought it was going to be this great thing. I think now it's worth like a fraction of a cent. It's not even worth 1 cent per Fastcoin. So I didn't do so well on that investment. And that's the thing to understand with these cryptocurrencies. They can go up or they can go down. And it is just like any other currency. You never know how the market's going to respond to them and how they're going to go up or down over time. I do believe that Bitcoin is a pretty stable currency. It might not seem very stable, but it is a very stable one. And generally what happens is, as like currencies like the US dollar or other currencies like that are fiat currencies, where the governments kind of print them out. Governments don't borrow money the way that most people think of them borrowing money. For example, the US, when they borrow money, they're actually just requesting the right to print the money. So every bill in the US is actually not owned by the US government. It's actually borrowed currency from the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve is actually a private organization, which is so interesting. So they're basically borrowing money that they are printing. It's a really messed up system. And it's a bit of a cash grab for those people running the Federal Reserve. But the point is, when you print a whole bunch of money and you're borrowing it, it devalues your currency. And so a currency like Bitcoin, that is considered a legitimate currency, and it has a hard cap of 21 million, generally will go up over time because it is restricted in the amount of those those coins being available. Another thing that raises the value of Bitcoin is the fact that a lot of it gets lost over time. So when a US dollar gets burned or destroyed, well, the US government will just print another copy of it. Well, with Bitcoin, there's actually accounts where people have literally lost tens of millions of dollars. They just forgot their ID for their wallet, and they cannot access those coins, and they just disappear. They just literally disappear. Or, well, they're still there, but nobody can access them. So it basically is, there's less coins than would have been normally available because, some just there's no access to them. So as a result, Bitcoin actually gets more scarce over time. And because fiat currencies are devaluing themselves, that's what inflation is, Bitcoin will constantly go up compared to them. So it's a very interesting currency in that respect. So I don't know, not really related to comics, but I do appreciate Bitcoin and all those kind of digital currencies. Okay, so next question is from John Gabriel, and this is the last question. So this is a big question though. He wrote, here is this week's question. most modern fans have never heard of the golden age of Canadian whites comic books. And I personally think it is a bit of a shame because there are some really great material published during that period. So my question is two parts. Part one, do you have any of the Canadian whites in your collection? Answer is no. That was easy. And that you feel that modern fans would appreciate. Okay, somehow that. So I don't know why this got kind of cropped, but so basically, the question is about Canadian whites, and do you think would modern collectors also appreciate these kinds of comics? And you're probably wondering, what are Canadian whites? Well, I don't have any to show, but I will explain a little bit of history behind the Canadian whites. So I kind of wrote it down just because it is kind of a little bit of a history. These comics, the Canadian whites, were published primarily from 1941 to 1946 and was the result of the implementation of the War Exchange Conservation Act, or WECA. And it was kind of a WECA act, wherein non-essential items were prohibited to be for import into Canada. So at the time, and this included pulp literature. So at the time, you couldn't bring in like modern comics from the US into Canada. So there was like a drought of reading material inside of Canada because we didn't have the American books that we normally brought into Canada. So you couldn't get your Action Comics #1, or you couldn't get your Spider-Man, not Spider-Man, but, More Fun Comics, or any of these great books from the US, All-Star Comics or something like that. So you couldn't get those books into Canada. So Canadian publishers and content creators said, okay, well, let's make our own stuff. Let's make our own books. And they actually did some they got some licensing things where they would produce like Captain Marvel comics, and they would, redo them. And it was kind of interesting. If you see any of those Canadian reprints, not necessarily reprints, but Canadian versions of Captain Marvel, usually the paper quality is pretty low and the artwork's a little different. So they're actually quite interesting. And so these books were published in black and white. And the reason they were kind of referred to as whites, Canadian whites, was because they were published in black and white. That was the reason. But some of the Canadian whites include titles like Lucky Comics, Maple Leaf Better Comics, Bing Bang Comics, Rocket Comics, and Nelvana of the Northern Lights. Now, Nelvana of the Northern Lights is one that I really do like. There's also another character that's like what's it? I think it's like something Canuck. There's like a Canuck character as well. But Nirvana is she reminds me a lot in terms of her look of Namora from Submariner's Girl. Really similar style. She has like the kind of things on her hair, like headband. It's almost impossible to find any of these Canadian whites. Really hard to find them. I actually been searching. I think this commenter basically, John Gabriel mentioned Canadian whites in the past to me on a previous comment. And after that, I started looking into them more and more, and it's just really hard to find them. They are really rare books. Every so often I see one go up on Heritage, and when they do go up, they're very, 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 very expensive. Like they're in the thousands of dollars because the paper quality was quite low. They were kind of cheaply printed, and they generally fell apart. Now you can buy trade paperbacks of Nirvana and all these other ones, like Johnny Canuck, I think is the guy's name. And you can get sort of like trade paperbacks that are reprints of those Golden Age comics. But trying to find the original comics is really, really challenging. I also wanted to give you guys a list of modern Canadian comics that you might not even realize are Canadian comics. And so I kind of created a short list I kind of wanted to read to you. And there's Brock Windsor, which I'm not actually familiar with, but these are just ones that I found. Captain Canuck. I actually have some Captain Canuck. And then we got Cerebus. Cerebus is kind of one that most people would know. Champions of Hell. Clockwork Girl. Ed the Happy Clown. Ezra Glamour Puss. And then Louis Riel. And then Neil the Horse. And then we got Nirvana of the Northern Lights. And then we got Northgard, Polkaville, Scott Pilgrim, Skim the Tower of Comic Book Freaks, Thieves and Kings, Underwater, and Yummy Fur. Those are some Canadian books that are, created by Canadian content writers and creators. So a few of those I actually have. So I have the Captain Canuck, I have Cerebus, I have Scott Pilgrim, and I have Thieves and Kings. So my Thieves and Kings are kind of locked away, but I actually brought with me in a box some Scott Pilgrim. Okay, so I don't know why I store it this way, but this is the way I store my Scott Pilgrim, in this box. So I'm just going to show you a few Scott Pilgrim, and maybe you guys can appreciate Scott Pilgrim. So if you haven't seen, they actually made a movie about Scott Pilgrim, and it is, if you're living in Toronto, if you live in Toronto, the Scott Pilgrim movie is just awesome to watch. There's just so much nostalgia and Canadian references and Toronto references in the Scott Pilgrim movie that it's just such a pleasure to watch. It's got so many cultural references. It even starts out with kind of like that 80s video game vibe. Just a really great movie. I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite comic book movies, actually. And it's Scott Pilgrim. And this is Scott Pilgrim. And it's the way the guy that created Scott Pilgrim, he basically created it as a manga. So it's Brian Lee O'Malley. And just, it's kind of like these manga. So it's very, very cool, very well done, kind of fun, interesting artwork and comic style. All black and white. Just a really great comic and great movie. So I was quite happy to get these into my collection. There's a bunch. I think it's 6 in the series. Let me just get the whole series out. I'm going to show you the whole series of Scott Pilgrim. I'm a big fan of Scott Pilgrim. Okay, we got Scott Pilgrim number 2. And we got Scott Pilgrim number 3. And Scott Pilgrim, just so you know, if you haven't seen the movie, I'm going to spoil it a little bit, not too much. It's basically, he's basically battling to get this girl. He wants to get this new girlfriend, and the only way that he can get the new girlfriend is if he can defeat all of her ex-boyfriends. So he has to go in battles against these, and it's kind of like very video game arcade kind of style fighting. It's very interesting. So yes, this is Scott Pilgrim number 5 and number 6. That's the whole set that you would, and I didn't pay much to get the whole set. I think it was like $50 for the whole set or less. It wasn't really that much. But it is a great series. I highly recommend it. It's very funny, and there's a lot of great cultural references inside the Scott Pilgrim books, so and movie. So I definitely recommend it. Okay, so that was put away now. Okay, So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I definitely recommend, as I said in earlier, that you check out my other videos. And you'll notice that there's a few where they got posted, as I said, in that weird time frame, that really should get more love. They got like 3 or 4 views. They get really low views, and they really need to get, they really should be watched. There's some really great stuff that I unboxed, and I was just so sad that nobody got to see it. So definitely I recommend check out my past videos. And if you have any questions for me for next week, please post them below, because I will answer your questions. And you can see I don't even answer just comic questions. I answer Bitcoin questions. So anything you want to ask me, I'll try to answer. And yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye.